Hi everybody, welcome back to another episode of Curse of Strahd. Today's session is going to be a little bit different. Uh, Grizz is still on baby leave,
Baby.
and so we are doing a couple of short little solo sessions for everyone. Um, which leads me to my first and well, only guest for today, but first guest of the little mini vignette season. Baka, what's new with you, buddy?
It's me again. Are you tired of me yet? Um, well, I have a bunch of days off work, so I'm gonna go run around, and do things.
You know what? They did the same thing with me, where they put me on gave me like 1 day off in 2 weeks, and then they gave me 4 days off in the past like 6 days. It's crazy. I don't know what
Mm,
the hell they're doing.
Well, yeah, ours is because it's the end of the financial year, so they're like, you have to use all these, or we have to pay you extra. I'm like, okay, I'll take them, I guess.
Mm. So you just got it good.
Yeah, you
Fair
know
enough.
that full time life,
Yeah,
that
I
career
know.
life.
Hell yeah. How are the trees doing, Becca?
Pretty good. They're gonna have to come inside soon because it's starting to get cold here. Yeah, they're being little babies outside. I got more sunflowers blooming suddenly, so I thought they were done, but they started going again.
Good, yeah.
Uh,
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, anyways,
What?
um, as for other announcements, you should follow us on the socials. That's Twitter,
Twi
Twitter,
twi
YouTube, which is this, and like I don't even know if we have any others that we use. Discord. You should join the
X.
Discord. Discord. Oh, well, no one's gonna call it X. Screw that guy.
Well,
Um, And as a reminder to everyone, Spelljammer is taking a hiatus because, Becca...
ooh, because we have Glory of the Giants running in its place. Well, it's because Grizz is on hiatus, but Glory of the Giants is running in its place. We're getting off to a good start. It's getting crazy over there, so definitely come check it out if you haven't yet. A lot of new players there, so if you want to see some new faces, be sure to join us there.
Show you my giant glory.
Ooh,
That's in the after session today.
Ooh, the
Um,
Patreon only.
yeah, Patreon exclusive. I don't think there's anything else to announce, is there?
Um,
I don't, I don't
no,
think so.
no,
Meal's not here, so he can't
heck me
promo
or.
anything else. So, we're gonna jump into tonight's game. Becca, you will not be playing Gar tonight.
Damn. Am I right?
We are instead going to be fleshing out some of the backstory of Blair. Um, Blair is still a fairly recent addition to the party. Blair came in at like what, session 30 or something.
I don't know. It's been a while since she joined a while ago, but still new compared to
Yeah.
most of the party.
So there's still like 30 sessions of extra stuff that the others have got that Blair doesn't have.
Well,
So we're gonna
that Meyore or not Meyore, Malin has got.
yeah, that Maynard's got, and I'm I don't want to talk about Grizz at all. Um,
Oh,
Listen, that guy makes like he's out of characters at this point. He's had so many of them.
you'd think.
So we're going to just do some exploration of Blair's backstory that might otherwise not come out in gameplay, um, because we are probably 3/4 of the way through Strahd right now, and I don't know how much more is going to come out.
Oh,
Yeah, a lot of what's left is just dungeons. I mean, you're getting ready to fight Strahd. Like, come on,
Dungeons
dude.
and Dragons
There are
and
no
vampires.
there are no dragons in
There's a
Barovia
dragon skull.
unless.
Oh,
So, back to Blair. Um. Okay. So, what to you, Becca, would be Blair's earliest memory that she is aware of?
that she's aware of.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's different than her earliest memory.
Yeah, that she's
Um,
aware of.
it'd probably be uh she's just held it in her mind so much, and it's what sculpted the majority of how she deals with what she has to deal with. It's the moment she bit the finger off of her nana and ate it,
That's the
which she was
earliest
very young
memory?
for that. So
Okay. So, uh, let's describe to me what your Nana's house was like.
it was very small. I think even to the point where it's only like there's no rooms. It's just the cottage. Um, like there's a space with at well later, not right now, will be two beds towards the back that kind of has a wall, like a low wall in between that separating that and what is majority the living space. There's like a small table, some chairs, and like a little kitchenette area. It's very, very small. Because it was made for one person up until the point that uh Ingrid, the woman that lives there, found Blair. Um, So yeah, very small. Not like it's as homey as it can be for where it is. Being in the land of Barovia, a small cottage outside in or outside of the town of Barovia in the forest. Um, Pretty solitude.
Yeah, so the interior of which is not particularly decorated, right?
Hmm.
Um, and you'll correct me if I'm wrong, but Ingrid's not a particularly physical woman, so the construction of the cottage is it may have been done by her, it may have been done by a local carpenter at some point in time, but throughout her living there, and Ingrid is an older woman,
Hmm.
um, parts of it will have become brittle or damaged or worn as time went on. And this is still early days, so it's not anything super crazy. Um, but at this point, you would have been living there for ever, you imagine. You know, since you don't remember it before. Um, this woman is all that you know, pretty much. Uh, every day there's food on the table. How old were you when this happened?
Um, I think it would have been really early on. Like there had been some close calls even earlier, but I think this specific moment, she's probably only like 4 at this point. Very, very young.
Okay. So, you're like, I don't know, 3 feet tall at this point. Um, let's say, in this instance, you're hanging around the cottage doing your own thing. What does baby Blair do in her spare time when she's got a free
Um,
moment?
she probably just has like some homemade toys, like nothing super fancy. Maybe um uh Ingrid was able to scrape up enough that one day when they went to Barovia for to buy some food or whatever, she or no, wait, that's in a different town. I forgot. I forgot Blinsky's in a different town. Um but like maybe it's gotten something from Barovia that's something smaller. Um yeah, probably just playing with like maybe probably blocks or something that were made from wood from the forest around them.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So, a little rough around the edges, but comfortable and homey for you. Uh, your nana would have been working on food for a good 30 minutes at least. This would have been your unsupervised time. Um, and as the call for dinner comes, or it's Barovia, so it's supper.
Oh.
As the call for supper comes, and you hear it, your nose also becomes greeted to the sensation of cooked meats. Something that was probably fresh, caught day before or whenever it would have been, and has been roasting openly on a fire. As that does so, what is Blair's reaction to something that is cooked?
I mean, it's like she probably had just been sitting in torment, having any kind of smell of food. Like she's already hungry all the time,
Mm-hmm.
but having to sit there and wait for it and smelling it is never been her strong suit. So just the moment that she gets the okay to come over to eat, she just rushes over, pushing past anything that's in her way to scramble up to the chair to get up to the table as quick as she can to eat.
Like a small rabid chihuahua.
Essentially.
Yeah. You clamber your way over the floorboards and climb up into the chair, kind of hitting your arm on the underside of the table as you go, and wheeling around to sit as obediently as possible before a large, kind of like a wooden board with like half of a leg of something, some meat on there is placed down before you. In front of you, you would have a plate and cutlery. But it's up to you what you do with that.
Um, I think she knows that she gets her serving size of what she's going to be eating from Ingrid. So she's trying to wait as patiently as she can, but is always a little too quick to the jump, even when the food is getting placed there. That she's already going at it before hands are taken away. Is just trying to eat as quick as she can to get because this hunger is a pain essentially to her, how hungry she feels all the time. So she's trying to get some kind of relief from that as well.
So as you are sitting there waiting, I'm gonna make you roll a charisma check.
All right.
You are young, so we're gonna set the modifier for this at a 0.
That's what hers is at 27 years old, so that's fine.
Perfect.
Level 7 Blair's got the same charisma as 4-year-old Blair. It's a 13.
13, yeah. So you managed to abstain initially as the plate is placed down and Nana's hands withdraw. And she sits on the other side. And you look up at her and there's like a twinge of like irritants as to why you can't just eat now. At this point you've been experiencing these hunger pains for a while and you're familiar with them. But as a 4-year-old, articulation on the matter is probably a smidge difficult. And Nana doesn't know why that happens. So she sits and places like a big like carving knife next to the boar. And you watch as she puts her head down after kind of giving you a stern look. And then she puts her hands on either side of the table and bows her head. You are familiar that Ingrid is, in your eyes, she's a religious woman. And this is a moment of prayer. Do you wait for the prayer to be done?
She's going to attempt her best. Just this 4-year-old girl's fingers in the wood of the table, fingernails clawing into the wood of the table, just shaking for trying to hold herself back. These huge, like, just Tim Burton-esque eyes of this huge, just trying to hold herself back from ripping into this before the prayer is over.
Mm-hmm. Make another charisma check.
Wow, 13.
13. It's getting harder, but you maintain.
Mm-hmm.
You feel the shavings of wood begin to scrape up from the table underneath of your sharpened fingernails. And nevertheless, it takes a minute before the prayer is said and done. This is an offering to someone called the White Sun, which later day Blair would be familiar with as the Morning Lord. Finishing it up, she looks forwards and, seeing you waiting there, picks up the knife and carves about a third of the meat off. Now, at this point, you'd be holding up your plate getting ready for it, but she uses the knife to sit under the meat with one hand on the other, on like the top half of it, and she leans forward to place it down on the plate and slide the knife out. As it's within your grasp, roll another charisma check.
19. I thought it was a 13 again. 19.
19. Surprisingly enough, she pulls out, and the meat is now the meat's now yours.
Like, the plate's close enough to the table that she just takes her hands out from underneath it and lets it clatter on the table, and just fully grabs it with her hands and pulls it to her face to start digging into it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a faint tutting from the other side of the table as she then begins to carve her own piece and eat away. In doing this, your hunger is... It's never really sated, is it? It's tempted, is what it is. It's enjoying it in the moment, and as the plate is licked clean and you suck the juices off of your fingers, you still find yourself wanting more. There's still some left on the table.
Yeah, I think, like, maybe it was even there hadn't been much food recently until she got this boar, and it took a while to cook, so it's been a little bit longer than Blair's used to going in between eating, and just she reaches out for more of it with her hand, not waiting for any kind of for Ingrid to cut it at all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you reach out. It's not super duper quick, you know, you're still a little clumsy, and you're kind of looking at her as you go in that way that kids do, where you're waiting to see if there's a reaction. And you watch as you pull your hand forward, and she sees it out of the corner of your eye, and she just grabs your hand right there above it. Kind of looks up at you, and you recall her muttering something about making sure that you ask first. Make another charisma check.
Oh, that's a 6.
6. So it's here that it happens. There's kind of this pulsing in the pit of your stomach, and like this warm sensation that seems to go up the back of your spine and throughout the back of your neck. And you blink for a second as you try and navigate your way around it. You don't have the force of personality to hold this back right now. You don't even have the force of personality to understand what's happening. You just watch as your vision tunnels and narrows, and the edges become dark and grim, and as she's holding your hand there, you feel your hand shift upright and pull. And then you remember chewing something that's warm but softer. And there's something hard in the middle of it that you have to kind of fiddle in your teeth to pull out. You blink and you watch as she's there. Actually, you blink and you're still standing on that table chair, looking forward, except now she's not in her chair. The boar on the table is gone. And replacing it is a smear of red drops that kind of speckle over the surface and go down and beyond.
I think just in a moment of confusion, she looks around to see if she can see where her Nana went. She can't see her.
You can roll a perception check. What's Blair's wisdom normally?
Blair's wisdom normally is a 0.
So you're going to get a 0 to this.
Woohoo! I'm basically just level 7.
Yeah.
10.
10. It doesn't take you long. It's a small cottage. She's actually on the other side of the table, lying on the ground. And you hear it first, as she's clutching her hand in the other one. And even then, it's seeping red and dripping onto herself and the floor around. You're looking at her as she's kind of writhing in pain and trying to hold back her screams as best she can. Make an insight check.
I'm not proficient normally, so a 1.
A 1?
Yeah.
You don't understand what just happened. You don't understand. You blinked and she's just on the floor now. And you've seen blood before, but you've never seen it come out of a person that you care about. You know, most of the time it's little nicks and cuts on yourself. But now it's oozing, and there's something terrifying about that. And you don't understand why this has happened, but you do feel guilty somehow.
Mm-hmm.
What does little Blair do?
She's already on the table, so she goes over to the other edge, towards Hernanes. So what's wrong?
In this memory, as you climb forward, you remember something being said and her rolling backwards towards the wall away from you, until she kind of rights herself and pushes up against the wall to stand using only her feet. There's a brief, couple of things that have been said to you sternly from her. And you remember her saying something along the lines of, "Why would you do that? What happened? Don't come any closer."
What's happening? You're scaring me. What's happening?
Oh, good roll, Nana.
Yeah, Nana.
You remember her standing there looking at you for a long time. Then you remember her walking off towards the kitchen, turning her back to you, which is an important thing that you remember. Finding something to wrap the hand in. And then coming back slowly and kind of kneeling on the ground in front of you that rag now becoming soaked in crimson. And then she puts a hand on your, like, shoulder towards the back of the neck. She pulls you in for a hug. And then this part you remember clearly, which is why you can hear it in your mind. You hear her say, "It's okay. It wasn't your fault. Just go sit down for a minute while I figure this out."
Okay. She like use the chair to get down off of the table. And, like, goes and sits in doesn't pick up any of her toys or anything. Just kind of sits in a corner, confused and scared as to what happened. And like her Nana said it wasn't her fault, but that doesn't change how she feels, because just her saying that makes her think, well, that was my fault then.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why she looked scared of me.
Yeah. So you go sit down in the corner. What are you doing while you sit down in the corner? What are you looking at?
I think just like watching Ingrid and see what she does. Kind of just like fidgeting with the hem of her dress. Not really knowing what to do with herself in this moment. Because she thinks she should be in trouble, but doesn't know why. She's had these like momentary gray outs essentially, as long as she can remember. But she never, like, she got scolded a little bit for some of them, but nothing like this ever happened.
Yeah, so you watch her. There's a lot of pacing back and forth through the kitchen. A lot of glances towards you. And lingering inspection. Before returning to what she was doing. You remember at one point her stopping and leaning on the table and pulling the rag back to inspect the wound, and at that point was the first time that you would see clearly that she was missing her third finger on the right hand. And as it comes out and she removes the rag, you watch as she kind of inspects it for a second before it begins dripping red again, and she quickly covers it up. And in that moment, that feeling of guilt that you must have done something must have happened that you were involved in, returns. But what's more than that is a familiar twinge of hunger that aligns with it. And for a brief second, although you may not have understood it yet, you look at her like she's a wounded animal.
Mm-hmm. I think that's what scares her the most out of all of it.
That day would conclude, and there was one bed in the... No, sorry, there were two beds in the cabin, right?
Yep. At this point, there'd be two, because she's old enough to need one.
Yeah. That night would end, for the first time, in her tucking you in while you were awake and letting you fall asleep by yourself. Whereas probably on most nights before, you would end up cuddling in one of the two beds, having her read you stories, doing generally maternal things. Not least of all because in Barovia, it is safer and probably warmer to be close to another person. And that night was the first night that you probably felt cold and a little more alone than normal. We're going to skip forward just a smidge to sometime later in the future. Not too late from this point on. It was probably still in the next few weeks where Nana picks you up. At this point, she's mostly back to normal with you. She's treating you mostly as you were before. And gets you dressed, and you leave. You begin to walk out of the cabin. It's not uncommon for you to go fishing with her, or to check hunting traps, or to forage for berries, or do, you know, your normal outdoorsy things with her. She takes you with her most of the time. But you go down an unfamiliar route out of the forest. Until you hit open clearing and large hills, which she begins to take you along. Probably haven't been down this way before. You remember it being as daylight gets. And as you walk, kind of looking around, you can see the river down to your left. The kind of you get glimpses of between the tree cover. And up back behind you, to your right, you see tall, looming cliffs. And although it's hard to make out, you can just about see a castle all the way on top of one of them. She leads you on until eventually you hit road, and just to the left of that road there is a small bridge which you climb over, and then you follow a dirt path down until you are greeted to a number of tents and a lively atmosphere. I don't think you would instinctively know what this is, although Nana probably would have explained some of it along the way, and you would now understand this to be Vistani. These people of life in a place that is so dark. These wandering travelers who might sell or buy wares, might have business to attend to, and the few people that can escape should they want to. She walks you forward, and you can see some of the Vardos, these wagons that they have, that kind of instinctively catch your eyes as they are full of colour and have beautiful horses in front of them. But Nana keeps you close the whole time as she walks into the camp. You get some glances from some people. They're not necessarily looking at you, more so the both of you. But she's purposeful in her stride, and she walks up to the larger tent that is here in the kind of offside to the middle of the camp. There are two people standing out front, and she exchanges some words with them before they part the curtains towards the tent. And she ducks her head in, holding your hand. You follow in behind. And you are greeted to a beautiful interior of this tent of reds and purples, a large wooden table sat in the middle, and behind rows and rows of books and trinkets and colourful things. On top of this table, you see two things. The first is a kind of cloudy glass orb, and next to it is a deck of cards. And sitting behind is a very old woman with white grey hair, wrinkles adorning every inch of her face, who smiles at the two of you as you enter. You remember them exchanging words. What would Blair do in this instant?
She is looking at everything with wonder, having only ever gone to the village of Barovia, which is very drab and dreary. Like trying to listen to what they're saying, and trying to understand what they're talking about. But mostly keeping quiet unless she ever gets addressed. And even if she does, she would look to Ingrid for confirmation of being able to talk, because she was told not to really talk to people in the village, because they aren't very nice people usually.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. They talk for some time before Ingrid kind of takes her hand, and it kind of perpetually rests somewhere around your body, like on the back of the shoulders or the top of the head. And you watch as now she finally turns to you, and you look up at her, having taken in the full atmosphere of the inside of this tent. And she kind of pats your hair down at the back a little bit and says, "She's just going to take a look at you real quick," and picks you up on the underside of your armpits and hoists you onto the table, where you now sit, staring at this old woman. Man, this is a weird experience for you.
Yeah, she's a little nervous, to say the least.
You look towards this woman. Roll an insight check for me.
Blair, 8.
Yeah, as far as you're concerned, this is a stranger, and you don't know what to do with her. You don't know if you can trust her.
Yeah, his eyes get wider, and she's now closer to this person without the protective barrier of the table, and her nana's behind her now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You watch as the old crone of a woman kind of leans down and smiles at you gently. I'm assuming you don't return it.
No.
And you remember her saying, "May I take a look at you, dear?"
She like kind of shrinks into herself a little bit and looks back at Ingrid for confirmation.
Yeah. Ingrid's staying close. She's just like, she's within arm's reach of you. But she kind of, the smile is gone from her. She's now, and you look back at a moment that she wasn't expecting you to. She's not as comforting as she normally is, and as she catches you, she kind of gives a nod back and half puts on that exterior. But underneath that, there's a look of like deep concern.
She'll turn back. Yes.
Very good.
Fiddling with her fingers.
Yeah, and you watch as she holds out her hands, not wanting to push you, but waiting for you to loan you hers.
Slowly puts her small hands into this woman's.
Yeah, and she begins examining your physical attributes. She notes the fingernails and slightly elongated fingers themselves off the bat, and you kind of see her really heavily take a look at them, kind of she clasps the fingernail and begins to pull slightly upwards against the finger. And you do feel it kind of like there is a little bit of give there. As if it could come out and regrow back fairly easily. But it starts to almost be a little bit painful and she stops. She notes the coloration of your eyes. And a few other physical features. Before she kind of stops for a second and puts a hand on the face. And you watch as she says something back to Nana. And Nana says something back and she looks concerned again. And she turns back to you and says,
I'm sorry, child. If you would not mind, I would like to have a look at your teeth.
Okay, I guess. Just tries to curl her lips back as much as she can, show her teeth.
Yeah, you see a hand come forward and she says,
Please try not to bite me.
Okay.
And as the hand comes forward, make a charisma check.
I'm gonna get 2 fingers after this. Let's go. Oh, okay, never mind. 18.
You manage to resist as her form touches the inside of your lips and begins to pry your mouth apart a little bit so that she can fully grasp the teeth. It's interesting. You're looking at her as she does this, and as she does so, and is immediately putting her fingers into your mouth, she's not looking at your mouth, she's looking at your eyes. And she kind of looks there for a second before going back onto the teeth. And then recedes. Kind of pats you on the head. And mutters something that you imagine to be very good. Before you are placed back down onto the ground. You're now in a room, again, that's filled with curiosities, and she's beginning to talk to Ingrid again. How much attention do you want to pay to what she's saying?
I think, like, if there's something really close, she might try to touch it. But other than that, she's going to try to pay attention.
Okay. So the interior of this tent is maybe 15 to 20 feet wide. Everything's pretty close.
If there's something especially toy-like, she's going to try and just, like, touch it to make it move a little bit, but not get anybody's attention.
Sure. Okay. So what you find is an old, like, tattered box that's made of some kind of card or something that it's difficult for you to tell. It seems ancient.
I'll try to open it without anybody noticing, just to see what's inside of it.
Yeah. You go ahead and pick it up and you look back and you see them talking, but they're not paying attention to you. And you go ahead and peel the lid off, and it's a deck of cards. And you look down, and the card that the box is covering all sides, but like there's a lip in the top where the flap goes in that you can kind of see. These look really old. These look a good couple 100 years old at least. And you can kind of see just the very edge of the card on the bottom that's facing you.
Try and slide it out to look at it.
Yeah, you go ahead and slide it out. And you do get a look at it. let me see if I can show you exactly what it is. Because I think this is interesting. Nope. Ah, you again. Suck.
You
Roll 20.
stinky.
It's been so long, I forgot how to upload things.
Go to
roll
the
20.
pictures
I got it.
icon.
I figured it out. Okay. This is what you see. It's a card that depicts some creature of sharpened teeth and elongated fingers, and beyond that, sharpened fingernails. Something that is vaguely humanoid, but not really. Something that's lost the soul of a person behind it. You see something that looks like it hungers. It's a card that is titled Beast. And that card becomes somewhat burned into your brain from this point on. At this point, you see or you feel a hand clasp over yours and slowly push the card back into the deck. As the box is closed, you see the new woman kind of looking back down at you. She's not scolding or condescending in any way. She just notes your interest in these things. And she holds out her hand to take the box back from you.
Very sheepishly hands it over to her.
Yeah, she just, without moving, she just puts it back on the shelf right next to you both. And she looks back up to Nana, and Nana looks down at you, and you hear her say in this memory to wait outside for a few minutes.
Okay. Shuffle out.
Yeah, you shuffle out, and you kind of just stand outside next to some of these guards while the conversation inside happens. What does Blair do while the conversation's happening inside?
She's gonna look up at these two guards for a little bit. Note their imposing presence, and then look around to the people that are around to see what they're doing, because they seem to be having fun and enjoying each other's company, which, again, Blair just has her Nana, which she loves her Nana, but that's all she has. She hasn't really had this, what these people have of, like, company and partying and enjoying each other.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you look around, make a perception check for me.
That's going to be a 2.
A 2. The sheer amount of people right now is a little stressful for you. You are alone for... I mean, you sometimes get left alone to do your own thing, but you're alone in a wide array of social situation, and this is a lot for you to take in. And you try to muster up the courage to go and talk to someone about why they're so excited or lively, and there are just too many people. You end up turning away and backing out into more of a secluded space, away from most of the hub of what's happening. And it's there that you turn around and you realize you are still amongst people, but it's just a small family. 2 parents and like a young girl, who are currently loading up one of these vans. The girl looks about your age.
She's gonna like peer at them for a little bit, just to see what they're doing.
Yeah, you see the man who you assume to be the father is a little more stockily built. He's got kind of curly-ish dark hair and is focusing on pulling up a few bags or belongings and putting them into the back of the wagon. The mother appears to be thinner, even a little, probably underweight or malnourished a little bit. And she herself has very frizzy dark hair, like slightly darker skin, and is tending to the horses, making sure that the reins are getting ready. The girl, however, the little girl, who you see to have this like curly, frizzy auburn hair, kind of a vague headband, and is wielding like a toy axe, is kind of just sitting on the ground in a huff, looking up at them, watching as they load, presumably her things, into the back of the wagon.
I think after watching for a little bit, she'll slowly creep her way up. What are you doing?
Well, my parents are trying to make us leave. They say that life will be better if we're outside of Barovia, but I don't know if that's true. It's just all I know.
But everybody else is having so much fun. Why aren't you joining them?
I don't know. I think I don't know anywhere apart from this, and I'm a little. I think I'm a little scared.
I'm kind of scared too. But I hear outside of Barovia is very nice. You don't have that scary castle looking at you all the time.
I heard there are other scary castles out there, and there are more things out there.
Like what?
I read about these things called dragons, and they're like big, scary lizards with wings, but they breathe fire. And these things called mind players, who are like big squid things. And I didn't even know what a squid was until I started looking it up, but they come up to you in the night and they suck your brains out.
What?
There's all kinds of monsters out there.
I haven't heard of mind players, but my nana has told me stories about dragons. But she says that there's brave knights that kill them to save princesses. So maybe there'll be knights out there to save you from the dragons.
Maybe you're right.
I don't know about the mind players though.
Well,
You watch as she kind of clutches the handle of the wooden axe and kind of brings it forward in a noble stance, kind of standing up.
I think I'm just going to get really good at killing monsters, and then I'll never have to rely on anyone else at all, you know?
That's a pretty good idea too.
Maybe you should do the same. Scare off a bunch of monsters so they don't come and suck the brains from you and your nana.
Yes, my nana's does pretty good at scaring them off now, but once I'm big, maybe I could do it for her.
I think that sounds like a pretty good plan.
You hear the man call out for the little girl to jump on the wagon as it's time to depart. You look at both parents sitting in front. And there's like a small hanging wooden ladder that's affixed to the vehicle in the back, which she kind of looks at and says, "Well, I guess it's time for me to go. I'll have to let you know about the mind players."
I would like to hear stories of them. Hopefully they don't eat your brain.
Yeah. Hopefully they don't eat yours too.
She like puts her hands on her head.
Yeah, you watch
Like it's
she
gonna happen right now.
she does the same kind of in solidarity with you, and then she realizes that you were just doing it for a different reason, and she's like, "Okay, well, I guess I'll see you." And she just turns and runs up to the back of the wagon, throws the axe in, and then climbs up the ladder and jumps in the back.
As the wagon's rolling away, she's like, "Oh, I didn't get her name."
Roll a performance check.
Do. Natural 20.
Okay, so your quiet young voice perforates outside of all of the commotion and the festivities that are happening inside the camp as she goes through it. Roll a perception check for me as well.
There's Blair. An 8.
An 8. You get as far as, "My name is," and then you watch the mouth move, and you remember 3 syllables or 4 syllables. But you don't hear a name come out.
Kind of weighs weakly. And then looks to see if Hernana's come out of the tent yet.
Yeah, it doesn't appear that Nana's come out of the tent yet.
I guess she's just gonna kind of look around again to see what there is to see. Not wander too far from that tent, and kind of keeping to herself. Because even though she had this nice exchange with this other girl her age, there's like everybody else is just so together and in a more jovial mood that she doesn't want to like approach anybody and get sucked into all of this.
Sure, so you keep your distance and kind of just observe for the time being. There's about 10 minutes of waiting before Nana pops her head through the tent curtains, and then the rest of the body follows, looking around to see if she can spot you.
I'd scamper over as soon as I saw her.
Mm-hmm. You scamper over and you look up. Roll another insight check for me.
19.
19. You see, she's definitely putting on a comforting and warm exterior. But in the past few weeks or months of your life, you've begun to see her crack under the pressure and the stress of what she's been given. And right now you can see an intense concern and worry, and also a feeling of processing beneath those kind of bright eyes that she looks down at you lovingly with. And she takes your hand and you begin walking back through the camp, back home. In the coming years, of your life as you begin to grow up more and more. More of the incidences of you lashing out happen. For the most part, you are fairly in control most of the time, and your Nana helps you to be that way. She tries her hardest to keep you constantly fed, at least once a day, although pickings can be slim sometimes. She teaches you how to hunt. She teaches you how to fish. She teaches you as best as she can, and she is, for all intents and purposes, a regular Joe. The survival skills that you need to survive in a land like this. And throughout the years of you knowing her, you watch as she ages. A little more than normal, probably. As the pressure of all of this is constantly weighing on her. And yet, she never complains. She never treats you with anything other than love, even when you have those moments of lashing out. Is there anything that adolescent Blair wants to do in this time? And as an extra bit of whatever here, over time, I'll say not over time, over maybe a few months or years after that initial meeting with the Vistani, she does inform you of a Wendigo influence on you, just so that you have a name behind it and more of a kind of base understanding of how to address it.
And I think more in her teenage years, especially as she gets more of her strength and dexterity going with control of her body, and she's more fluent moving through the forest. She would go out a little bit further and like see if she can find other houses. Like she still has that curiosity of seeing that Vistani family and just how other like platonic families function, being that she's just had her Nana her whole life, and would like during her teenage years when she goes out to like catch rabbits or whatever for in between meals, she'd probably try to find other houses if there were any others around to just kind of watch and see what that life is like.
Yeah, so you don't venture too far from the cottage, but you do find again that encampment, the Tserpool encampment, which remains there the whole time. And although some of the tents and the wagons come and go, the one that stays stationary throughout everything is that large one that you recall you went in those years ago. And from this, you do watch some of the Vistani families that are there. They're all, for the most part, kind of like one big family. Like, most of the kids just mingle and they're just told what to do by a bunch of different adults, but you can still pinpoint the isolated relationships between mother or father and child. And you spend some time taking all of them in, which is a contrast when you eventually find the village of Barovia. that is a place of purely survival. Those people don't experience happiness really ever. Most of them starve. You rarely see people outside that show any semblance of life other than an occasional few. In particular, you do pick up on a boy who's maybe a year or two younger than you, of like bright blonde hair, who kind of struts around, thinking that he's a bigger deal than he probably is. Roll a perception check for me. Either perception or history, your choice.
A natural 20 on perception.
You would wager this to be one Ismark the Lesser, who is the son of I forget his name, Idiran Kolyanovich, who was the burgomaster. Well, he died before the campaign started.
Yeah.
Whoever the burgomaster is, he's the son of.
Kolyan
Kolyan.
Indirovich.
That's what it is. Kolyan Indirovich. I had it backwards. I was like, Indiran Kolyanovich? No, it's reverse. And you see, he's mostly treated with respect, but you look towards the people and they're half zombies. Most of them, anyway. Like, they just kind of saunter around, going about their day, never really showing any emotion other than occasional fear, but they're kind of like walking husks for the most part. He is not.
He just kind of looks at him with curiosity. It's like, this is probably one of the times where she snuck over here without her Nana, like during one of their shopping visits. So she's a little more free to take in what these people's lives are like.
Mm-hmm.
Just kind of watches them. And eventually would make her way back home.
Yeah, you make your way back home. Throughout this time, you are aware of the existence of other creatures that prowl the woods. Wolves being the main perp here, but there are other things that have a tingle more magic in them than your average wolf or dire wolf that do peruse the forest. And in your escapades away from the cottage, there are times when you find them. I'm sure there are times where you fight them. And when they're alone, they're okay, but you understand that in greater numbers, sometimes it's better to just run away and make sure that Nan is safe and regroup later. And so, in your years, you begin to learn how to take care of yourself, how to keep yourself in an acceptable level of hunger, how to keep the cottage as a relative pocket of comfort when it's not being attacked. Is there anything else that Blair should do?
I know at some point after like watching people in Barovia, she would ask her Nana why they're so bleak, especially compared to the Vistani.
Fucking shit, man. Nana,
good.
Nana can't
She
roll
rolled
below a
a
15
grog.
tonight. Nana's on it. Nana's about to pick up a great axe and become a level 20 barbarian, is all I'm saying.
Oh,
Um,
2 old women in the party.
you learn from Nana, and you gather that most of this is recounted information that she was told from possibly the Vistani. This is when you're a little older, probably 14 or 15. And she recalls to you that not everyone in this realm is born with what most would consider to be a soul. At this point, you know of Strahd's rise to power, and she recalls back to this, mentioning that when he became a vampire and the mists sealed off Barovia from the outside world, everyone had a soul. And then people started being born, and it was almost like there weren't enough there to fill everyone's bodies anymore. It's almost like anyone that dies here is stuck here until they find a new body to inhabit. And nothing new ever comes. It's almost like the trees themselves are just clones of each other half the time. Most of them don't even grow to give any defining features. It's almost like they live in a constant state of depression and they just do what the outside world tells them to. And it's the same with the people. That's why the people in Barovia don't ever really show anything but fear, because they can't feel anything other than fear. All their happiness, their joy, excitement, pain, sadness, they don't experience it at all. All they can experience is self-preservation, and that's the only thing that they know. How does Blair feel when told that information?
She almost feels like she feels pity for them. Like she doesn't live the most lavish life, but at least she's got some kind of autonomy. I guess it's not autonomy necessarily, but she has those range of emotions, even if something else is in there with her.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it just feels bad for them. Sorry for them.
Do you think that Blair would question whether she does have agency and can feel those things, or if it is just the thing that lives within her that feels those things?
I think there is part of her that feels that as well.
Okay. Do you think that Blair knows that?
I don't think she knows for sure. I think she wants to think that she has her own emotions, but isn't for sure.
Cool. That's good to know. And so you keep going. You learn a little more about the history of Barovia as a realm. You learn all about Strahd's insertion, Strahd's ascension. Your Nana can recall rumors of what she knew of the wedding between Tatiana and Sergei. But she doesn't really know for sure. She also, as time goes on, you note she begins to grow a little worried because she starts to hear rumors of monsters inside the village of Barovia that pose as normal people. And there's a point in time where she asks you not to go near that village anymore. Do you abide?
I think she once or twice tries to slip over there, just because, like, there's some. It's not. I guess it's a morbid curiosity of how these people live without souls. So she likes watching, to see what their lives are like. So I think she does sneak her way over there once in a while, especially now that she's even stronger to defend herself in the forest.
Yeah. Just roll a general stealth check for me.
Damn it. um, Even with her level 7 modifier, it's bad. It's a 8.
8. Yeah, so you sneak out a couple times, and you go over there to watch again. As you do occasionally see Ismark prowl about the streets again. He seems to frequent one of the local taverns, and he grows into a little bit more of a, and you can't quite make out any conversations or anything like that, but a little bit more of a noble guy. He kind of commands some presence here in town. The people seem to respect him a little bit, those that can offer respect. He takes a little more care of his looks. He's attractive, kind of, to the average person. And there are points when you watch him prowl around town with another woman. One that doesn't look anything like him, but they do hold close together. This woman has dark black hair, wearing similar type clothes, although notably she's perhaps a smidge more reserved in her demeanor than he is. You aren't entirely sure of their relationship, but like 40% of the time, wherever he is, she's there. As for the monsters, you don't see any. You don't note any, but if they are assuming the figure of people, then you wouldn't see them anyway. And when you get back home, there are a couple times when Nana is waiting for you. Every time you do, you watch as you return, and she seems a little more withered than she was before. But you get a general lay of the land. At this point, you come up to your 20s. I'll say early 20s. Is there anything else that Blair should experience or know about?
I don't think so, other than when she eventually leaves to be on her own. Still stays in the area, and like protects the cottage from afar, but doesn't want to continue to put this wear on her Nana. Feeling that she has to raise her still.
So at what point does Blair decide to leave?
I think probably about mid-20s, maybe 2-3 years before we see her in the main campaign.
Mm-hmm. And how do you do it?
I think one night she leaves a note for her Nana, just letting her know that it's time that she leaves. Sets out on her own and learns to care for herself. But we'll always remember everything that she taught her and appreciates her for everything she's done and how much she loves her.
Okay.
And then as she's leaving, takes the woodcutter's axe outside. So she has something to further defend herself with other than relying on this being that inhabits her body.
Mm-hmm. And so you leave. Over the next few years, you remain in the area. You remain prowling the woods around the cottage. And there are times when creatures do begin to slip by, and they begin to make their way into what is essentially the red zone of your area. And anytime you become aware of this, you go up and dispatch. Nothing gets too close for comfort, aside from maybe one or two isolated occurrences. But you're strong, and you make sure that nothing happens. Nothing ever lays a finger or sets foot inside that cottage. And there are moments, you know, when you prowl around, when you're keeping watch, you look back towards it, you remember the times of your youth that you spent there. Sometimes you see her as she walks outside to hang up her wet clothes so that they can dry. She's getting up there in her years. She's still got some time left. She's not close to dying of old age, but she's becoming a little more frail every time. And it's interesting as you watch for the next couple years as this happens. She continues to age at that same rate that she was when you were there. You know, you may have been a source of stress for her, but not having you there appears to be just as heavy for her. Although what you're doing is probably more important, and you can't put her at risk still. And then we go forwards towards the night that the audience meets Blair. As you recall that night, you remember meeting Esmeralda as she was wounded in the woods, fleeing from Castle Ravenloft after an encounter with Strahd himself. You remember her offering you to tag along with her. You chose to do so, and in doing so you met these new friends, if you can call them that. These people who match you in your strength. These people who you feel that with enough training might be able to end Strahd once and for all. You are confident in that. Roderick has gone away. You've lost Malin. Now it's just you, Gundrick, and Tia. Now Tia's sensible, she's smart. In terms of who to have around, she's a good one. Gundrick is strong, although that strength is really just in his arms. He's more headstrong than head smart, we'll say that. He's a good weapon to have. You can point him in the right direction and he'll hit things, and he'll hit things well. But you're missing your monster hunter. And you're missing your bard. And you're going back to get one of them, and you are thinking back on everything that you have learned in your time here. Do you think, or I should say, how does Blair feel about where she is now and doing what she's doing? How does Blair feel about the challenge that she's about to face?
Well, she was feeling good up until, because they were going to start coming together, getting stronger, and unifying. And now, essentially, two of them have been picked off. Two, like, the one that she looked to as a leader is currently gone, apparently coming back. And then Malin, the one that's been entangled in this the longest, is gone. So a lot of confidence has left Blair at this point. Starting to feel lost with this endeavor right now.
So why is Blair pushing on?
Because she knows that if there is any hope of ending this, she can give her Nana some kind of safety at the end, at her final years. Maybe make this place safer for the people that she's watched for so long live soulless, empty lives. Bring some kind of life back to this land.
So the motivation's there. And you start heading towards where you think Malin has gone. You don't know what happened to him, but you believe that's the direction that he's headed in. And you look towards the woods, and you recall those times when you prowled your own part of the Svalage Woods, protecting your home from the monsters that would see it essentially razed to the ground. And you're familiar with those monsters, and you're pretty confident that if you find any straggling packs of whatever evil you find in there, the random encounters essentially, you can take care of them. But how do you feel about leaving Nana to deal with those?
Not well. Was just barely able to do it herself before Blair was there. Now it's been almost 30 years since, and Blair's been taking care of the majority of things up to this point.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't expect to be away as long as she has been.
How often does Blair think about going back?
Probably every day, honestly. Thinks about I could just run over there, make sure everything's safe, come back.
And what stops her?
I think the hope that she had was stopping her, but that's quickly leaving.
Okay. So, we are going to leave Blair where we left her at the end of the last session that she was in. But now with a more overt look into what's going on in her psyche. I think it's interesting to note now that although the characters are unified, the bond that's there is constantly wavering and fragile. And especially for characters like Blair, I think the thought of leaving is quite common, which is important for the audience to be aware of. Because Curse of Strahd is hard. So, we will catch up again with Blair in a couple weeks when we resume the hunt for Malin. But before we do that, is there anything else that you, Baka, want to say about anything that made Blair who she is, or anything that she's thinking or feeling right now?
Not that I can think of. But yeah, it's just that she's joined this group to save, like, the majority of it is to save her Nana. Like, that's everything to her. But to bring any kind of hope to the rest of Barovia is her main goal, having watched these people that live in this land, as well as seeing the Vistani who are able to come and go as they please, and the stark difference between the two of them. But yeah, it's like it's hard for her because she's just putting her faith into these people she's never met before.
Very good. So, we're going to leave that there. So thanks, Baka, for coming and essentially exploring the backstory of your character.
I loved it. I loved that. Last session, we were both trying to talk as deep as we could, and this session, we're both trying to be very young girls.
Yeah, little girls. Isn't that's such a DM thing to do, right? Man. No, it's good. I like this because it helps to... You know what it is? I blame Grizz for this. This campaign started off as a very solemn and bleak, like, dark gothic atmosphere. And Grizz made a character thinking that he would help encourage that tone, and then completely lost it in roleplay. And I'm glad that even though for the most part this is a funny campaign, we can still bring it back to, like, oh yeah, this sucks. So
you
that's
gotta
good.
have both.
Yeah,
you gotta have both.
I want to remind people that, like, this is how the rest of Barovia sees what's going on. It's just that us fucking about and doing shit is just the way that we see it.
Yep.
So yeah, we'll catch up with you back in a couple weeks. We've got a good bit of content to get through before then. So depending on when everyone's ready, we may do a Gundrick and Tia combined, like, back-to-back session, because these ones, they don't take too long. But we'll see you in a couple weeks to go on the hunt for Malin.
Ooh, and kill him.
Yeah, well, you could do that if you wanted to. Tommy wouldn't mind. All right, well, that's it, I guess. I don't have anything else to say, so bye.